Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. Our hope is to unite shop owners to tackle common stress points and challenges that they're experiencing within the auto repair shop space. Our mission is to guide you towards the best solutions for your shop. So tune in, join the conversation, and let's move your business forward. Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. And today we've got a great panel before us. We have 4 instead of 3. It's probably because this topic is so prevalent for so many shops. One of the things that I love about the auto repair industry is just the level of family aspect and attitude, even when it's not family, is so prevalent. And so the number of shops that I come across who are the second or third or fourth generation I love it. I'm a big fan of family. And so I love that this space has that going on. But I also can pull from some of my own experiences on how that can be challenging and what we can do about it or how we can approach it or what topics we need to actually make sure that we're addressing as we're going forward. I was talking to a shop just last week and the situation was actually about valuation. And so sometimes shops are sold for $1 because it's within the family. At other times it's not. And so when you've put your own heart and soul and sweat into it, the balance sheet doesn't seem to actually justify the amount of sweat equity that you've put into it. All of those things come into play here. And so we're going to touch on a bunch of those types of topics. But ultimately, I want you guys just to have this natural conversation about what it was like, what it is like, what it's going to be like. And so without another moment notice, let's actually just introduce our guest. We're going to start with Mitch because he's in the top corner on my screen here. Mitch, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your shop. Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll move on. Go ahead.
My name is Mitch Fasnacht. I'm the owner of Green Lawn Garage. We're located in northern Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. This is our 65th year. I'm a third generation owner currently. I have 2 sons here working with me right now. Their plan is to take over and be the 4th generation. We're a 10-bay shop. We have very good capabilities, probably right up there with the dealer as far as the things that we're involved in. So,
okay. Dealer alternative. Good. Steve, how about if you go next?
Hey, I'm Steve Traversari at B&C Auto Center in San Jose, California. We're a small 3-man shop. We've been at it since 1978. I am been here for 22 years and I am the service manager.
Erik?
Hi, I'm Erik Scheidt from Chicago, Illinois. We are a 5-bay main shop, but we also have a satellite shop that's 4 bays. So we're pretty much a 9-bay shop. The satellite shop does not allow like customers. So it's pretty much just work and employees over there. My father has owned it for about 36 years. I have been there since I've been there almost half my life, a little over half my life. And I love what I do.
Good. Ben, how about you?
Hi, I'm Ben Armstead with Armstead Automotive. I'm out of Michigan. I got 2 shops in Michigan. I got a 9-bay in Holly, and we got a 6-bay up in Saginaw. They're located about an hour apart, so I do some driving. My dad started the business back in '86, and I'm a 2nd generation. Going to be taking over soon, and I work with a few of my siblings as well.
Nice. Great. Okay. So here's my first question. Was it, and Mitch, you actually mentioned it already, because your sons have already, you mentioned that your sons are already thinking about taking over the shop, or is that your thought for them?
no, I actually begged them to go do something else, to be honest, and I encouraged them to enter a trade because I think that's where there's good value in that. And they're mechanically inclined kids. I encouraged them to try and do something else. But they're set on doing it. And I'll tell you, I have 2 very different boys. One is a absolute car fanatic. He loves tearing things apart and putting things together. And his younger brother is a numbers guy. And I've already figured out their roles or what they want to do. The younger one helps me more in the office as far as writing estimates and learning more of ownership type paperwork type stuff. The other one doesn't want to do any of that at all. If they can figure that out and maintain that between the 2 of them, I think they'll do well.
That's interesting. And do you see, so you and Erik are a part of the same management group, right? ATI group. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Do you see that group helping them figure some of those details out?
Oh yeah. So ATI has helped us tremendously over the years as far as just being able to take a step forward and transition. And as far as things that we're looking forward to being able to do with the cars, technology and equipment, things that other shops were doing before we were. And as far as the management side, we have a portal that we can enter information in. I have my younger son starting to work on that information with me, shows me percentages that we need to maintain a profit. I think that it's a good aspect for them to follow through with that.
Okay.
A couple years ago, we did like a shop visit. So we do shop visits each year to different shops. And the one shop visit was 2019, Mitch, or 2018. We came to my shop and Mitch brought his oldest son.
Correct.
Right? And I think he was 19 or something at the time.
He was
how old?
17.
Yeah, he was young.
Yeah.
And he got to see pretty much how another shop was running. I thought that was good because he could have been like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I'm out.
Well, and that's where I was going with the question was the question I really wanted to ask everybody was, at what point did you realize, okay, this is what I want to do? Because maybe some are born knowing. My own experience, my dad actually had hopes that I would actually join his business as an electrician, and going on the job with him as a teenager and whatnot. And then eventually talking to him about it in my early 20s, it was a scenario for him was he had a particular vision for his business. And it didn't align with what I would want for my life at all. He wanted to just be he and his son. It was Hurlock Associates, and that was it. And he didn't want to have 5 vans all doing different jobs, different times. He didn't want to actually expand into commercial. He liked doing just residential and all those things. And so we ended up not going along with each other on it, and happily we're fine. It didn't create any, that was very good. As a dad, he did a good job making sure he didn't actually require it of me, letting me make my own path. But I learned that it wasn't going to be in line, actually having that conversation. So I was curious to hear from everybody as far as, and Erik, you already said it. You've been around the shop the entire time. And when you were a teenager, the light bulb went off. You said, this is what I'm doing.
Not exactly, but you would hope that it was like that. So I was working at the shop pretty much when I was in high school. And then I went to a community college because I just didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I'm also a numbers guy, so I hate getting my hands dirty. So I knew I didn't want to be like an oil change tire technician for whatever time and then grow up to be a technician. So it's a really long story, but ended up being that my father had an employee, and one weekend we went there just to check how things were like after hours. And all this guy's, like, he was his manager, technician. He was kind of everything for him. All this guy's stuff was just gone. He just up and left, no call, no nothing. And it just put me in a position where it was like, I guess sink or swim. And I didn't want to sink because if I did what I was planning on doing, I don't think my dad would have stayed where he was. And I don't think he would have been able to be able to keep up with the times changing. So I just decided to jump right in. I graduated community college with a gen ed, and I never went anywhere to college. But the way I saw it was with ATI is not cheap, but it was, to me, it was almost like an automotive ownership course, ownership tuition, if you will. So like I took that and we tripled business pretty much within 7 years. So did I want to do it? No, not at all. But what I have done is I've made the best of it. And now I actually do to do it.
Nice.
But I'm not a technician. I never will be a technician.
Okay. All right. Nice. All right. So Ben, take a stab at that. Tell us about when you realized that this was going to be your next step.
Well,
and I also saw you nodding your head. Are you also a part of an ATI group or a 20 or a different organization? So
we've been through a few. So I guess we've started with one and then we moved on to another. And currently we don't belong to any. Correct. But I'm aware of them. I've done some of the shop visits and stuff like that and been through some of the meetings and everything. But I guess where everything started for me, I don't know, man, I feel since high school, I knew that this is the direction I was going. I was doing like a OTC program where I was going like half time to the work on cars in high school. Pretty much as soon as I got my driver's license and my dad had this truck he handed down to all of us. It was like time to, all right, how do I put gas in this thing? I need to make money. So now I'm working at the shop. Coming out of high school, I went to University of Northwestern Ohio, So I got my automotive, or it seems like a degree in applied science or whatever. We go ahead and got my training. I was working as a tech prior to that. I got master certified when I was 19. Came back, worked as a tech for a while. Dad's kind of showing me the ropes. This is how we're doing things if you're taking over. And I did see some things he doesn't have a lot of free time. So I was trying to looking into, okay, is there a better way to do this? So I actually went back to Baker College for small business management and ran the course. And then I used the shop as a model on everything I did through my business program. And then when I came back, I got out of the technician side of things and I started going more towards management. At that time, we had a 24-hour towing company. So I actually took over the 24-hour towing company while service was still running. And then at one time I took over the 24-hour towing company and service. And then my mom and dad wanted me to focus on service. So they pushed me over to the service side of things. And I've been running the service center for about the last 10 years. So I guess that's where I'm at, but I always knew that's what I wanted to do. I'm definitely a goal setter, and then that's where I'm headed. You know what I mean? I don't know. And then I'm stubborn and I don't know when to quit. So I'm just stuck on. So.
Okay. All right. Steve, tell us about your background when you decided that this was going to be your next step.
Yeah. So it's funny because I'm not related to the owner at all. And I started working here when I was 16 as a cleanup kid. And over the years, it got to be, okay, now we're going to give you more and more responsibility. And then it turned into, hey, I was at community college. I finished my communications degree. I was like, cool, I'm going to go start doing something. And the owner helped me put together my resume. And after a few interviews, he goes, why don't you just work here full time? And so then I started working at the shop full time. And then 2008, I became the only service advisor. Terrifying. And we were in with ATI and doing stuff like that. And then we did one other company. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. And I've been managing since. And then it got to a point that I started looking around and going, okay, the owner's getting older. And so sat down and talked about it. So about 5 or 6 years ago was finally, I think this is the direction I want to go. But having the conversation and getting there. But I've known the owner since I was 10. And he was my youth pastor at church. And so we had great relationship, almost like fun. And
right.
Just nice to have that there. But at the same time, it's figuring out that I wanted to do this. I had no clue I was going to go down this road. It approached me. I remember talking to Tex when I was 16 and Tex were going, oh, what do you want to do? I'm like, I think I want to be a mechanic. And all three of them just looked at me and said, no, don't do it. And
yeah,
I'm like, okay, well, that changes things that I'm thinking about. 16. And then I was like, okay, I like cars and I like people. So the office is the place for me. Moved in there and I've loved it ever since.
Nice. I love that. And you're starting the process. You talked about it 5 years ago. There's nothing official as far as paperwork you're at the beginning stages of now.
Yeah, we are fresh beginning. We've barely got a plus. We don't have a plan.
Okay.
We're at plus days.
Okay. And I don't even know when Ben, Mitch, and Erik, why don't we answer this? Was there a written plan of, okay, I'm going to start this process? And did you have that plan written out? And did you share it with your parents and say, well, here's what I'm mapping out? And did you get them to sign off on it? Or was it more casual than that? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in there real quick. So the beginning of it is I partnered with my dad my dad had a partner. I bought him out in 2005 and my dad could have retired at that point. And so he kept telling me he's going to work till he was 70. And I thought, okay, whatever, that's what he wants to do. We didn't have anything written at that point. So we're quickly approaching 70. 70 comes, he's still working. And I'm not making a lot of changes. Not a lot's happening because he still has his hand in it or whatever. So eventually got to the point where I did come up with a written plan and I presented it to him. Said, this is what I want to do. This is, for me going forward, I think is the right way. And it was the proposal to just buy out everything. And I did that because I have 2 sisters as well. And I wanted to make sure that if something happened, that I got accomplished what I wanted to get accomplished with buying the business, the real estate and everything without having anything going to any kind of estate type of planning or anything like that. But it took 8 years of, we'll say fighting, but 8 years of work to get that accomplished after that 70-year threshold was crossed, and
He worked till he was 78.
79.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Can
think
you
when you
put
talk
in the
about
comment-
this being a family business real quick, I think that for a lot of these guys who have spent their entire career building a business and doing whatever, they can't walk away. And that was, I'll just say that was my dad's problem. And he had worked so much, been attested to it. He said, I see he doesn't have a lot of free time. My dad had no free time and he didn't have any hobbies to go to. So this was his life. And so I think trying to force him out or whatever was, he felt that's what I was trying to do. And I was not force him away, but change the dynamic and the structure. And that's why we had to come up with the written plan.
I can definitely
forgive me
relate
if
to
I'm-
that.
What's that, Ben?
So I definitely can relate to that. You know what I mean? I think my dad did get out earlier. He's going to be turning 63 in November, but it was running the show for quite a long time. We all knew it was going to happen. We all expected that to happen. We all talked about it. Within the years, kept spinning on and we're okay, what's exactly going on? Or it's hard for you. I'm ready. I need to plan my life now. I'm having a young daughter and I got these things going on. And it's like, how does this all fit in the puzzle? How I got to where I am is I had another shop owner that's a friend and he used a company. It's called J.K. Auto Associates and it's Larry Kelman. And he actually specializes like in succession planning and also working with families. Definitely like working with families. And the one thing Larry told me when we started this whole process was like, all right, I see where we're going, but my goal is to go ahead and make the transition, but you and your family are all going to sit down for Thanksgiving every year. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm not trying to burn any bridges. We're going to make sure everything is properly communicated. So after I got a hold of Larry, my parents agreed to have a meeting with him because we all wanted the same thing. It's just that we just didn't know how to get it done. And then everybody looks at this succession planning or how you pass a business down to the other. Is there one way to do it? No, there's 100 different ways to do it. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. You just got to figure out like what fits for everybody and how to get through that process and still salvage. Cause I do work with, my 3 siblings and they knew too, cause they had their positions. They watched me run the company. I wrote all the policies and, procedures and held all the meetings and developed the leadership team. So they seen that going that way. But then we all agreed that it's better to have one chief. You know what I mean? Not just too many chiefs and not enough Indians. You know what I mean? We didn't want to have that in the future. But Larry really helped us just bring us together as a family, talk to us individually, have family meetings and help this way. And then also figure out how are we actually doing this? How is the business actually paying? Because I've been working here this whole time. It's not like I got a side gig, but I've been stashing a bunch of money. The business essentially has to buy them out. So over the course of the next 10 years.
It's interesting with the plan, which it's a matter of defining who the chief executive is, but it's also a matter of defining all the other roles of the people who are still a part of the family to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Erik, did you have a written plan?
And I'm still in the fight version of what Mitch is going through. My dad will be 78 in October. So
okay.
Hopefully with Mitch's story, we got maybe less than a year left. I basically have been running the show since I was, 10 years, at least 10 years. Like I said, my dad, he's very old school. When I first started there, we were doing written ticket. It was like a clipboard, take whatever job you can and go through that. I've changed that. We're now all digital and going forward, like he just didn't want to change. The issue with him is he wanted to be an employee. We started a profit. I don't know if anybody read the book Profit First.
Yeah.
But great book. I started going through that and then he reaped the benefits of that. But he just basically with him, he wanted to have his cake and eat it too. And he still wanted to be an owner. But I'm still to this day, still fighting. I'm 48% owner. My mom and dad are each 26. Obviously I'm a majority, but that was probably a strategic move by him and his lawyer friend, whoever. But listen, I can attest to Mitch. Mitch and I have had conversations
Mitch,
where
did you come up with your plan?
Both of us started tearing up because it is a rough time, and it is family. So it's not easy. I've given this guy many different plans, and it's just still, I'm just basically doing the waiting game at this point.
So are you going to, I missed a little bit there. Are you going to have a written plan now that you've heard a couple other people say that was helpful? Do you need Larry's phone number? I'm sure Ben would give you Larry's phone number.
Yeah.
I put it in the chat, but I honestly, I don't really think a plan is even anything. My dad's an old stubborn German. I just don't think anything, he doesn't care. Like I've given him many different plans, and it hasn't panned out. So again, I'm just playing the waiting game. I got my mom involved in all this now. So like having family dinner on Thanksgiving, we're not there right now.
Oh,
so it's ugly. It's gotten ugly.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know if this story is going to help or hurt, but I've got a friend of mine who he lost his business. He lost his business after he was running the show, but on paper, his dad owned the business. His dad passed, and he didn't have the cash on hand to pay the death tax. And so he had to sell the business just to cover the tax liability. So
that's part of the issue too. I kept saying to my dad, like, listen, you need to like prepare for emergencies, and no one wants to prepare to die, but like, that's just how life is. And I've been arguing with this before I even moved out of the house. I lived in my parents' house. I don't know. It's been 13 years. I argued with him before that. I remember driving to work with him, talking about it over 14 years ago.
Okay. All right. Such an interesting dynamic. Anyone want to ask Erik any questions about this? Steve, are you interested in, you probably have some questions about this, no?
Cause like the way that we've brought it up. So we had a meeting, I think, God, it was years ago, 10 years ago, and where we were talking about what the future looked like. And I looked at the owner and said, hey, I need to know that in 10 to 15 years, I'm going to be sitting in your chair. And if not, I need to go find something else to do, because this is my plan. So if you're not going to be willing to do this, I need to go find another job, for the most part, because I needed to find a career. I have 3 kids, and if he was going to be done, and
like Ben was saying, I had to plan the rest of my life. Yeah.
So we've been up front. We're completely, hey, this is what we're doing. We talked the other day, and I even told him, like, I'm not forcing you out. This is all on your time frame. This is all on what you're doing, because this is your baby that you've grown since the 70s, and I wasn't alive in this. So it just makes it where I feel like we're good on that page. We're going on the same road together, but it's just having everything written up, I like the idea of having a partnership with them for a few years if needed. We just don't know where to go yet.
You can almost share ownership over a period of years, right? Yeah. That would be interesting. Mitch, did you write your own plan, or did you have help with it? Did you leverage ATI? Did you leverage people did you have your own Larry?
We talked about, Erik is right. We talked about this in our group a lot with our entire group. Our facilitator asked me to present it, and I laid it out there for our entire group, what was happening and whatever it is, and all the sensitive information and the tiers that Erik talked about. That's all real. That's true stuff. And so really what happened was I got to the point where I wanted this to move forward. So like Ben said, that you can plan for your life. So what I did was I approached our accountant that we used here, and he's also my dad's personal accountant. And I told him what I wanted to do, and he helped me put together the plan. And I'll be honest, I said, when we put it together, it was to purchase the real estate, to purchase the business and the whole 9 yards. And I said, good. And he said, it's not great. I said, is it bad? He said, it's not bad. He said, it's good. It's fair. And that's what I was looking for to present to my father. Something that was fair.
Right.
And because I had already given him so many years of my life, loyalty, help keep the business going, whatever. I wanted it to be fair. And so we presented it, and my wife and I, and he looked at it and listened to it. And, actually it was my mom, like Erik said, she said, I think it's good. And we left it at that night. And then he came and said, okay. But if we didn't start that process and bring that to a written form or whatever it was, I was prepared, honestly, at that time, if we couldn't get it done, to go do something else. Because I know what I can do out in the industry. I could have gone somewhere, work for some other people or whatever it was. And it would have hurt me to do it. But I was prepared to do it because I have a wife and children and I want to set that plan. Ultimately, we got it done.
And I think that's an interesting thing that you just brought up was the fact have a backup plan or have another option so that it actually changes the, I don't want to say negotiating or bargaining table, but it changes the dynamic of the table. It changes the dynamic of the conversation potentially.
Right.
If you are prepared to, and I also liked what you said about, I mean, being a parent of I almost said young parent, a parent of a young child, I realized how much my parents have invested in me. One of the things that I'll never forget that my mom used to always say to me that used to really upset me was, at least you have your health. And I didn't understand that until I have a healthy son, right? Now I get what she's saying. And so my point though is what can we do to take care of that prior generation who feels like family or is family? Because we want to treat them more than fair. We want to make sure that they're covered. It's not just about us. They've done so much for us.
Right.
So I think that was also a nice piece. You didn't mention he is retired now. I don't know.
Yeah, he's retired and he lives 2 blocks away from the shop. He'll stop in 1 or 2 times a week, checks on not so much me anymore, but how the boys are doing, what they got going on, what they're working on, things like that. So it's good.
Okay. So the shop is a hobby for him now. The interactions at the shop are his hobby.
Yeah. And I think just to circle back,
You're gonna have golf clubs for Christmas or like maybe,
so I think to circle back to that question or the comment earlier was, I think the hard part for him was to not see his customers all the time. And you build relationships with your customers over the year and you talk to them and you learn about their family and all this dynamic stuff. And when you decide that you're not going to come in every day, that changes and you don't see those people all the time. And like I had to tell them, hey, I saw so-and-so, they were here, they asked about it, and give them the rundown about how dad's doing or whatever. It's that type of stuff. So I think that was a lot of it for him.
Nice. Now, Erik, you said your dad is actively at the shop. Is he doing ownership management type activities or is he turning wrenches or is he?
No, he has not been actively at the shop probably since prior to COVID.
Okay.
He
just has an opinion on how it's being ran.
He doesn't have any opinion. He literally, like, I do everything. He doesn't have any say in like day-to-day business. He just won't let go because of it's greed. I think it's greed.
Well, it might be security also.
Security, but also security with greed because like I've given him basically like he was getting a paycheck and my whole offer now was because he owns the land. He pays a mortgage, which should not have to pay a mortgage. That's another story. And I basically just offered for him to be landlord. Like, I'm not trying to undercut and say, you know what, it's all mine. Like, I want it all.
Right.
I mean, yes, I do, but I'm trying to be fair. Mom just retired recently, so they need some type of steady income. And to be a landlord, I don't see why what I've brought to the table is not fair. It's just, we were in a verbal agreement pretty much, I don't know, in March. But my dad seems to like to listen to other people in his ear other than his son, who pretty much has the best interest for him. But again, I'm telling you right now, it is dollar signs. And that's the main thing that he's put in front of his son. And that is to this day why it's gotten ugly and I don't think it's going to end anytime soon.
Sorry to hear that. But he's expressed that it's dollar signs. He's actually flat out said that to you. It's about the money.
One time he said, I don't think that's enough.
I see.
And I was like, okay, what are you talking about?
Right away, that sounds like the sweat equity piece coming into the equation, right? Yeah. You live and die by these things sometimes, right? So,
well, and my whole thing was too, is if I didn't join when I was joining, I don't think he would have lasted another 2-3 years.
Yeah. Yes, but he doesn't feel that way. I can't imagine.
No, he definitely does not.
Yeah. Right. He would also say that he created the framework that allowed you to change your starting point. But you also brought up a good point in that it's the shop and a lot of times it's the land. Steve, does Ron own the land? Okay.
So Ron owns the land, and we've already discussed about he'd be moving toward landlord status. But sorry, Eric, I was listening to you too, but the thing that I feel like it's talking about is you're talking to your dad, especially, or talking to the owner about it. It feels like saying, hey, how do you want me to plan your funeral? And a lot of people don't like talking about that. And it's a whole changeover into, okay, I'm going to take over your business. I'm going to do what I want with it. And that's what they think. What we're actually doing, because we want to continue on doing what we've been doing for the last year. But it just, to me, it feels like if somebody came up to your mom and said, okay, so after you die, what do you want me to do with the house? How are we going to split this up between the people? And nobody likes talking about that. And that makes it rough. But finding those conversations where you can go in and be like, okay, how can we make this better for you? And you might not listen, but just thinking that way.
I think you might be onto something. I think my family might be the only family out there that's actually comfortable talking about what happens afterwards. My parents have been talking about it for 10 or 15 years now. And I actually am. And so when I've gone to my wife and tried to say, okay, well, we should have a plan so that Cole's taken care of, she gets all upset. She can't handle the conversation. So I'm going to go have the plan. It'll be quietly and neatly and just in a folder for her. But you're right, Stephen. Most people don't like that conversation. I wonder if that's part of it, Eric. That's piece of it. I see you're nodding your head a couple times in agreement. Do you want to chime in?
I guess it's over a few things. I guess the landlord situation, I think that was part of my succession plan, is they do own both the properties for both the shops. So they're going to be a landlord. They do plan on me purchasing these shops. And honestly, also because, and also within 10 years, they would like me to purchase the real estate just so it doesn't go into, if they do pass or something, and it does get ugly where we have to split everything, and it just makes things complicated. So it helps them. It funds them for the first 10 years and then funds them for the rest of their life where they do feel secure with what we're doing. Another thing I was going to say, I think Eric, one of the nice things is that he did get himself separated from the shop, because I think for a lot of shop owners, that's very difficult. And it's nice that he's pulled himself away. So he's able to spend his time not there. That's one of the battles. One of the battles is like, how do you spend your time? Because you get so invested into a shop and they don't know how to quit, or they don't feel right not being there. You know what I mean? So I like right now, I'll tell you, I got my dad on a golfing trip right now. You know what I mean? That took a lot of work. You know what I mean? Because he was definitely not the guy. He's definitely the on-site, hands-on kind of guy. So it took a lot of time to get that trust and for him to distance himself and be able to do that. Now, the next part of it was just how to get my parents financially secure, and also feeling that the business is going to be taken care of. It's going to be okay. And Ben has this. It's going to go ahead. It's going to keep going. I will be able to fund their succession plan. I'll make sure that also that the careers of my siblings are taken care of, and we're going to continue on. And not even just my siblings. And we got a lot of other people. I think we got 15 families.
Right.
So it's very important to make sure that they feel that they can trust me with it. But also, there was definitely a lot of little steps that had to be taken. And another thing I didn't want to mention was I did have to have kind of a tough conversation at one time, saying, because of the way I set my goals, I set goals out ahead of time. I set all the goals for the shop, but it came to a certain point where I couldn't set my personal goals past, I was stuck. I couldn't make it to that next step. I'm starting my new family and I'm trying to get things going, and my brain doesn't work that way. So I did have to talk to him about it and say, I just need to know what the plan is. We have to have a plan, or I may have to seek different employment or do something different for myself. Because and again, as respectful as you can, but it's a tough conversation to have. But
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
I think the issue is they don't have a plan. We have to come to the
exactly, and that's my parents too. They didn't know how to go about it or anything. I can tell you honestly, and I know I mentioned Larry, but I don't know if this would all be happening right now if I didn't have the help from Larry and just that communication and stuff like that. Because I think that really helped things out. Because that was the problem that my friend Joe had a similar problem with his dad. I think his dad, though, he more had an issue with the time. That shop was his life. And I believe George is closing in on 80 or something, and he's still at the shop every day. But that's what makes George happy. So they had to fit.
Yeah, but can I get a diet plan for those 80-year-old? What are they eating?
No, I think honestly, it's the work and the consistency. There's a lot of people that retire, they slow way down and they stop moving, and that kind of hurts them. But if you're always doing the same thing and you're always staying active and keep going, I think it's part of what keeps them alive so long.
Yeah. The answer there is purpose.
Yeah,
and that is their purpose. So, yeah. So we got to find them a different purpose.
So it's
and golf might be purpose.
Yeah, no, but he's got other things going. We're building a house right now too. So I'm keeping him busy. I got him doing some things. So
but I've heard a lot of people, when you say he's 80 or whatever, my grandpa worked here till he was 86 years old. He came every day and he didn't necessarily turn wrenches every day, but we had a tow service and he ran the tow truck and he'd be out jump starting cars or fixing flat tires or do whatever. But it's not just their purpose. I think it's their identity. And that is where it's their life. If you go somewhere and they say, hey, that's Mitch from Green Lawn Garage, or that's Ben from Armstead Automotive or whatever it is. And that's how they're recognized. And that's how, when you spend your entire life doing that, and that just becomes who they are. And I think when they have to walk away from it, other people know them. Yeah, for a little while or whatever it is. But eventually it transitions away. And I think that's a hard thing to think about. Or what am I going to do now? Or now what am I doing? Am I got to go to the nursing home? Or what? Yes, you keep it busy. That was my grandpa's thing. Keeping going is keeping going. And so don't stop. It's a mentality.
Hey, Mitch, I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm terrible at this. How do you establish a value for yourself? You were talking about making it a fair contract. How do you get to that, hey, I think I'm worth this much?
Not just what you're worth, but also what's the valuation of the shop too, right? Both.
Yeah. So we had to really work with the accountant on that. Look and see, what role did I do? What did I do? What would it cost to replace me at that point? We're all taken in the position where we are the face or we are the head honchos now. And it's all on our shoulders. So could you put somebody else in that role? Maybe. What's the value that you're going to have to pay somebody else to do that? And that's where we had to start. And then we came up with that thing and just put together with a package, but how are we going to pay? That's 10 years. And that's how it was with my dad. My dad, when we bought it out, we had two separate entities. Of course, we had the business and the real estate. And so we valued the business at X amount. What do we have for equipment? This and that. What are we doing in sales? All that stuff, run together, figure it out. And I paid that in 5 years. And then the real estate was its own entity. So we had set it up with their accountant and whatever. So now it's tax beneficial for him. I didn't really care if it was not as favorable for me in the tax situation. I wanted to get it done, but I wanted to make sure that it was going to be beneficial for him and tax wise, the way we set it up so that it paid out. It's a 9-year payment, paid over 9 years. And my dad actually financed the real estate for me. So when we did that, we're allowed to use the federal applicable tax rate for setting up a loan like that. So it actually did benefit me as well. And so he receives a monthly check from me to help pay off the real estate. But you have to work with your accountant on that because they're going to ask you all your numbers. They're going to go through all your paperwork and everything like that, and to help you get it accomplished.
All right. Yeah. I just struggle with, I have that I'm lucky to be here feeling, getting over that and being like, no, I'm actually worth something. Is really
sure you are. Yeah. If they had to hire somebody to replace you, you would hire somebody that's going to be a service advisor for you. I would imagine not knowing you, but just knowing the role and the responsibility that you're taking. Someone in our role might say we're a service advisor, but there's more to it than that. When stuff hits the fan or whatever, you're the guy. And so there's value in who's going to handle this? Who's going to take care of that? Ben's managing 2 facilities. So there's value in that. If you want to find somebody who's going to manage that, those people come with the price. But you have to learn to pay yourself fairly, I think. And then once you have that set in place, then you can start coming up with the valuation of what it's going to cost, to move forward.
All right. Mitch, does your accountant have other repair shops that he works with or she works with? I don't even know. And was it a family connection or how did you select that accountant?
Yeah. So it was the original
Son, grandson.
Son, I say, yes, son. I feel like when they went into business or whatever, yes. And then his son, and they went through the whole thing, helping them get incorporated back in the day and the whole 9 yards. So those people really, for a majority of my grandfather's and my dad's life, I have a different accountant now, actually, since we had gone through that whole transition, but they really did know the in and out of our business and what was happening and whatnot. If you have that with your personal accountant now, that's where I would start. Maybe they're capable of doing the business valuation. If not, they certainly know people who can and get that ball rolling.
Well, but I find it interesting. Does anyone here use an accountant who is specific to the auto repair space?
We did.
You do now?
I had switched from them to a specific automotive repair based accountant, but I have since switched away from it.
Okay. And are you still just another family, another local CPA firm, or a different?
I switched back to another local CPA firm.
Got it. Eric, you were nodding your head as well. You use an accounting firm that actually is specific to the industry?
Yeah, specific to the industry. They were highly recommended by ATI, which I'm sure that's who Mitch had, and he switched. I don't know why he switched, but they've helped me a lot, actually. The accountant's been pretty instrumental in getting me these. Pretty much, like, I gave my dad a proposal pretty much. So he helped me with that. He's helped me just with talking to my dad at the same time.
And that accounting firm, they weren't your parents' accountants?
No, my dad was as a friend or a local person. That's why we're in this mess.
And I wonder if there's value in making sure that you don't use the current owner's accounting firm. Now, Mitch, you had a good experience with that because they've been in the business for so long. So you were adjacent families, basically. So that probably helps. But I'm wondering if having a different perspective from someone who isn't necessarily would be beneficial. I don't know. Ben, do you have any experience on this?
I guess I'd like to put in that Mitch is exactly right on reading with your accountant, trying to figure out a valuation. But also, you may meet with 3 different accountants and get 3 different values. So there's not it's not like an exact science that you put the numbers in and it spits you out how much a business is worth. And then on top of that, it's, what, like for Eric's situation, what is it worth to your father? I guess and trying to find that middle ground. As in going through the numbers, you do your due diligence on trying to figure out what you think it's valued for, but then it still depends on the owner of, okay, what is this valued to you, or how does this work? How can we pay this out? Again, there's just a lot of different ways to slice it.
Are you accounting firm? Ben, are you using the same accounting firm as your parents?
Currently, I am. Yeah, but we actually just did a little switch, and I'm actually working. My sister Jessica is like my CFO, so we've been talking about our accounting firm right now. We're feeling them out. We may be going with another one, but they've been doing okay right now.
Mitch, what were you about to say?
So Ben just said that you might get 3 separate things, and I knew that. Had I gone out and asked for whatever, and that's why I said to the accountant that we were using, "Is it good? Is it good?"
Yeah.
And he said, "It's not great." And I said, "Is it bad?" He said, "No, it's not bad. It's fair." And that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be fair. Just like if somebody wants to buy it for me, they want to do the same thing. They want it to be fair. So, and that's how we got that whole thing being fair.
Steve, you're early on in the process. What other questions do you have?
My other so I can run the shop, right? The owner decided he was going to leave for a month. I could open the doors, get all the customer taken care of. Everybody's happy, good to go. But the second you say, okay, go do payroll and taxes and all this crap, I'm gone. Right. And I have no clue. How did you guys get into that?
I don't know. I think I've been doing payroll over 10 years.
Eric, you do your own payroll, or do you use a payroll firm?
Payroll company. So all the employees, they go and they clock in and out. I go through it every Friday or Monday, and then payroll goes in on Tuesday. I haven't taught anybody how to do that. So let's say I were to just decide to be like, you know what, I'll see you guys later. It's something you can get trained on. It's just nothing. It's something you can. Do you know what everybody gets paid?
For the most part, I talked to the owner and I was just like, hey, you know what? Let's every week or 2 pick something and teach me how to do it. Teach me how to handle disability claims. Teach me how to handle work comp stuff. Right. All of the stuff where this is all business related, but not actually business productive.
Yeah. So Steve, I would tell you to go further and write that down. Have a written schedule, because we were talking about this in the previous podcast, right, Eric? About training and having it written down actually makes it more real. Ben, looks like you have a thought.
Yeah. I got something. I'm going through that as well, because I was really the operations, and I also did the marketing as well. But when it really went into the finance side of things, all the bill paying and the payroll, we do our payroll in-house. Jessica and my mom, they've been the ones that have handled that role. And that was the one, even when I started this process, that was the one part that I felt like I just didn't have a really firm grip on. So when worked with Larry too, he guided me a little bit, which was we started our standard operating procedures for the payroll, the whole financial side of the business. So that kind of started with making like a calendar for the year, but also a calendar for what gets done per month, and then break that down into standard operating procedures. And then Jesse's been writing these operating procedures up for me. And then we've been working together. So now I go through and I test them and make sure I can go through and I can get payroll done or whatever else. And again, that is for Jesse's not going. I don't want her to. But if something happens, I got to be able to step in and be able to take that role and be able to check those boxes. And let's say if she does leave or something happens, I may have to rehire somebody for that position. But at least now I have a schematic, what I need to do and what day, and I just follow the procedures. But that's actually a big part of what we're doing this year. I'm hoping to have everything done by like third quarter, just so I can say that we're going to recap the whole role, make sure we're not missing anything, and just make sure we got a good handle on things before on January 1st, me and Jess are off and running. Even though I still have parents, I'm building a house next to them. We're going to be fine. You know what I mean? But I'm doing all my due diligence to make sure that we're prepared for the next step. But yeah, I know exactly what Steve is feeling, because I was in the exact same boat like last year. I'm like, I got to handle everything, but what am I supposed to do there? And then also just the communication with my mom, then pull out what else? Was there anything else from this? Just to make sure I don't want to drag her back in after retirement because we're just totally forgot something.
And one of the things that I did, or I wanted to, was to have a real good handle. I run our payroll every week. And so I just had the accountant, I paid them to have one of their employees, spend time with me, understanding how to run the payroll. And we set it up in our QuickBooks file that taxes are automatically paid and this and that. I watch it every week and I make sure it goes out or whatever, but it was really the repetitiveness. Like, she would spend every time with me, or when I'm ready to run the payroll, she actually came here to our shop and sat in my office with me, and we inputted all the data and calculate and put it in so that I understand where it was going and whatnot. And now I do it, and that's what I'm training my younger son to do. But I also have my current accountant as my backup in case something that we're away and I can't get it done or whatever. So whatever the transition is, she does have access to my file. And honestly, I trust her. And I had to message her one time. I'm like, look, I can't get in my computer for whatever reason. You're away. And I said, I just can't get the file through. And she said, no problem. I'll take care of it. And so having her and having somebody else that you have that relationship with that understands something, she can see if I mess something up right away. Or I don't understand something, she'll jump in there. This is wrong. And not often that it happens. It's usually a QuickBooks thing itself, but to be able to get that. And I think understanding that is a huge thing for you. And just like Ben says, having things in place so that they do have a handle on and understand what's going on, and having a backup person is huge, because we used to outsource it and I didn't know anything about it. Now that we do it inside or in-house, I feel better that I understand more about it too.
Right.
But that's a key point, though, is that there are things when it comes to, say, marketing or payroll, that if you don't have a full grasp on it, delegating to a specialist makes sense. And I'm a little bit biased because I come from a marketing background, but that is a reality, is also assessing what is in your realm and what isn't, and putting that into the plan. But so there are things that, for Stephen, in your situation, there might be situations that Ron is actually handling right now that you say, no, I don't want that. I'm going to delegate that to an outside firm, and I'm going to focus on these instead. And maybe that's part of the plan. I don't know.
Yeah, I think my part of the plan is to learn how to do it personally, and then decide if it's worth it.
Makes sense.
Payroll, you're saying?
Just in general. There's some things where it's like, I want to learn as much of every aspect that I can that I need throughout business, and then be able to determine if it's something that I need to handle or I can delegate it to somebody else.
And that's something you learn as you go along further. You recognize if you take in that ownership role, and Ben probably can attest to it with 2 locations, you can't be all things.
No,
It's impossible to do it. You did it for a while and it's all on your shoulders, but you soon realize that it's overwhelming and you have to put people in place to handle it because it'll make you nuts after a while.
Well, and that's interesting because that's one of the things that kind of caught my attention with my dad's business was he was doing all of it. Actually, my mom was involved in some of the bookkeeping, but it was when I started when I came up with the marketing plan, the business plan, I wrote a business plan for my business partners and I for our marketing company. And interestingly enough, some of the people who were thinking about partners said, I don't want that. It gave a clarity to what was going to be happening and who was going to be doing what. But it also, my parents came to me and they said, oh, so you're going to learn how to design a website? I said, no. And decades later, I still don't write a single line of HTML code. That's not my thing, right? That's not what I do. I talk to people. Ben, Steve, you can relate. I like talking to people. Ben, I like to plan things. Right. You can relate to that, right? I don't need to be in the attic at 110-degree weather installing a ceiling fan, which is what my dad did into his 60s. And I don't know. I don't know why. God bless him. But yeah, so that was my take on it as well. So I think it is appropriate to delegate I'm not going to learn the tax code to file my, right? Now, Mitch, you're nodding your head. Yeah, payroll's a smaller piece of it and it's still complex in and of itself. But, and yeah, there are software pieces out there like TurboTax and whatnot. I don't know. I think it's a little bit more complex or can be if you want to have an advocate in your corner. What are the questions or thoughts around this topic? So we've come up with the idea that we've got to have a plan in place and everyone's got to be a part of it. We've got to have a calendar of that training to pass the baton. And what other topics should we be touching on with this whole transfer from one generation to the next?
Customers. I understand that you guys in the business front and center. Also me, I've been up front since 2008. Everybody knows me here, but there's still a concern of, hey, I want to make sure that people understand that the friends of the owner, they're still going to be treated the same. And like keeping that PR up for the area that, yeah, we changed ownership, but it's still the same place you've always been going to.
I would say that I wouldn't worry too much about that because you're not going to keep the same customers. All the customers are going to be, not everyone's going to want to do business with you. Some people just wanted to do business with, what was his name? Ron.
But see, that's the other thing is Ron hasn't been in the office 12 years.
Yeah. So then everybody's doing business with you anyway. I'm sure people think you're the owner already.
It's happened.
Like that happened with one of my other service advisors. Like when somebody's just talking to somebody for so long, they think that person's up in the ownership. That's just not how it is. But I think I guarantee a lot of people think you're the owner already.
You're on your way, Steve.
It's kind of it's a natural progression. Once you start assuming that role and the role that you're in, people will start to assume that. I find it more comical. I'll just say the biggest thing that I enjoy right now is shuttling customers. A lot of them just think I'm a shuttle driver and that's okay. And so I pull up in front of the shop and load all their stuff in and take them wherever they need to. They just talk and I just listen. And then they'll say, what do you do there? Do you do other something? I said, I'm the owner. And when I have people writing service and I have technicians and whatever it is, but so you're making your role and a lot of people already recognize it.
I think I've always had the joke in my mind because I'm a nerd, but I've always thought it was the Princess Bride, Dread Pirate Robert thing, where you just start calling them the owner and then overall people just start referring to you as the owner. That's how you hand it off.
Yeah. Nice. Kind of. Mitch, I love that you're the shuttle driver. That's great. Because one of the topics that we've talking about in the future on this podcast is how to actually address loaner cars versus shuttle versus Uber rides and those types of topics. And one of the things that jumps out at me as an issue with if you're shuttling your customers back, God forbid, what if an accident happens and it's a W-2 employee driver that actually is driving. And that's where like my stress just went up on your behalf. And so I love the fact that you're the one doing it from that perspective. But so that's interesting. How did you find that role you just needed to be done. So you started to do it and now you're the primary?
Yeah, that's how as we transitioned things, and my dad was still here, my dad became more of that role as he aged. You're not heavy wrenching or anything like that anymore. There's things that he liked, but I would do basically whatever I could do to get somebody to get their car in. I don't have a ride. We'll give you a ride. So hey, Pop, we'll bring the car around, this lady a ride home or whatever. And we've been doing it a long time. And so I try not to do something here that I can't be pulled away from. I don't turn many wrenches anymore. I'll help out if I have to. I don't want to be involved in something that I can't walk away from, that I have to remember all kinds of steps and whatever. So I just do whatever to do to help keep the things rolling. Shuttle driver, maybe I'm picking up parts here and there, that type of stuff to help keep the flow going. But I love being the shuttle driver. I totally love it.
It's a good way to hear feedback from your customers too.
Yeah. But like a lot of people don't know me because I've been here 30 years. Yeah. And so they know me, but when you get new people in, they don't know. And I just have the conversation and we're talking about whatever. It doesn't really matter. And I just let them talk. And that's when they ask me, do I do anything else? Or I'm like, oh, I'm the owner. And then they'll want to talk about that or whatever, but it's a great thing. And I enjoy.
Nice. What other questions should we be discussing on this process, this transfer process? What are the topics? What are the sensitive issues?
I mean, it sounds like timeline, you guys are all talking 10 years-ish.
Depends.
I don't think it needs to take that long, but I think when you're dealing with family, it could take that long. But I think that you need to have in the plan, I'm sure Mitch had his timeline written out. Hey, 10 years, I want to have all this and I don't want to. You can come in and chat with the customers and talk to my sons, but I don't want you to have a day-to-day operation.
And I think sometimes the length is actually for the prior generation.
Yeah.
Right. Is to give them that level of security or feeling that they're attached to their identity, as Mitch put it, for how many decades. And so if that's not an issue, I was talking to another shop who they're hoping to get this wrapped up. They just started the conversation and they're going to try to have it wrapped up before the end of this calendar year. And,
right.
So the timeline is a part of that plan, Stephen. What's that, Ben?
Well, also like the succession plan and the payout is 10 years. Like my name's on the taxes next year. I am ownership. You know what I mean? It's just that I didn't have a ton of money that I could pay this thing all in one lump sum. You know what I mean? Right. They've been paying me this whole time. They know where I'm at. You know what I mean? So that's a part of the business, financing the transaction for me, for being family. I didn't have a whole bunch of money to say, here, Dad, here you go. Here's $1 million or whatever it's going to be. So that's the process for me. I think took about roughly 1.5 years to 2 years on the succession plan process. But then the next step of it is after I am in the ownership seat, the next thing is it is going to be paid out for the next 10 years before that is still taxing the business, or that lump sum of money is coming out of the business in that way. And then after that, they're still landlords. You know what I mean? So they still got that. And then I'll be purchasing the real estate after that, which then continues to help them throughout retirement and everything. So they don't have to be worried about money or anything like that. Everything's taken care of.
So some of it was just having a conversation with them, I imagine. What are your goals? Thinking about them, being in their shoes,
and that's
what they need out of the equation.
And I think a lot of owners too, like when they get to there, a lot of them don't plan for retirement, and the retirement thing should be something that's planned out.
Yes. But the business is
5 years to 10 years prior would definitely help things out. So they're a little bit more ready. You're ready for that whole next step. So yeah, that's what it was. That whole 2 years is more asking them, how much, what are you doing in 10 years? What's the number? What's going on?
And they don't even know the answer to that question.
They don't. They have no idea because they haven't thought that far ahead in the process. They have a good thing. They feel secure where they're at and they know what they know. You know what I mean? And they do feel unsecure with giving that up. You know what I mean? Honestly, I feel like my dad's this is great. This is all going to work like this. So for real, the person that has a hard time letting go is actually my mom because it's her security. You know what I mean? It's her security and watching the money and they have other properties up north and other assets and stuff, and just to make sure that we can hang on to these things and they can live a certain lifestyle.
We didn't cover yet was the transition from the old technical way of doing it, or whether it was paper or whether it was partial digital, to where you're at today. When you came on board, you probably had in mind that you wanted to adapt more technology. That's pretty common when the next generation's coming through. And it's also very common that the older generation wants to, keep doing it the way they've been doing it. And by the way, my follow-up conversation to that is going to be, do you still occasionally bring them in as a consultant on certain topics to get their perspectives? But first, let's talk about the technology side. Anyone want to talk about where you were at when you started to take management control and where you're at now, and how for Mitch, it was a scenario where it was not happening until you wrote that plan, that good, fair plan, and then they adopted it. And then you started to adopt technology, or did you have to wait for that plan to like a certain period of time for that to happen?
Well,
what was the process?
We had a little bit, but so I'm older than I'm older than the rest of you. Erik tells me I'm an old man all the time. But so we were handwriting tickets here till 2015. That's hard for a lot of people to fathom, but we were using a 3-part invoice, and we had an old handwritten work order, and everything was longhand. And I told my dad, and so I said, this is before the buyout. I said, we have got to change this. There's so much better ways of doing things. And he wasn't going to. So I bought a computer and I set it up, and we got like Mitchell on Demand and their office thing. I started doing that, and I actually duplicated a bunch of things, that his handwritten thing first, my computer thing, so he could see that it was going to be the same thing, that it was going to work out just like he thought it would, or that I knew it would. So it was going to show him the same thing that he wanted to see. And then the transition started to happen. And then I wanted him to learn how to use a computer. And the first time he tried to use the computer, I don't know what he did, but he locked it up. We couldn't do anything. He ripped the cord out. He ripped the cord right out of the wall. I saw it happen. And he said, if you want the computer, he said, it's all yours. He said, I'm done. So that was the transition to being able to have a computer into the office.
Mitch, it really was not nice that you put a virus on that machine. That was not very nice of you.
Yeah, right. I sent him up. But we're all, just like Erik said now, we're all digital. We're all in on all that stuff. And honestly, some of it is a learning curve for me, having to learn that stuff. It's not my favorite thing, but I know that's where we have to be to go forward. And that's what my kids are used to already, just being 20 and 22. That's what they know. And so for them, the transition to learn that stuff and use that stuff, it's not a big deal. So,
Mitch, and something else. I think about it. Like my parents' ability to use it and figure out a microwave was difficult, right? A microwave.
Yeah.
And I've often thought about, what is the technology going to be that I am going to trip over myself and struggle with? It's going to happen. There's going to be a process or a technology that your sons are going to want to bring to the shop, and you're going to be like, huh? It'll happen.
I think the stuff that maybe we see now, it's the programs that we're using, not so much the computer itself. We're all using the computer. Okay. It's a new program that is for whatever it's going to be, or it's software that the guys are using in the shop to diagnose.
Or Elon Musk Neuralink in our brains to make us work faster.
Right. It'll happen. But like right now, I feel like we're pretty up to date, and we were forced to make that transition. We held on as long as we could. I didn't want to hold on that long, and these guys have, I guarantee it. But it was a big deal to get that hurdle crossed for us.
So COVID happened, and your dad stepped away from the shop and you stepped in, Erik. And at that moment, did you start, we're going digital because we're trying to be contactless? I don't know. What was the argument? What was the process?
No. So we've been digital, probably doing digital ticket, or we used RO Writer for, 2009, 2010, right around that time.
Okay.
So I pretty much, like, when I first started there, I was like, all right, I am not doing this written ticket stuff. I have to go back upstairs, look in the file cabinet, and Mrs. Smith got a tie rod done 2 years ago. Is it still under warranty? No. Okay, cool. That took me 25 minutes. So honestly, just like streamlining things, making things easier for myself, knowing that I could, like Mitch explained about the portal numbers. Doing a written ticket and portal numbers, that is impossible. Like knowing, hey, this is how much money you made for the entire year, for the week, for the month. That's a lot of time. So I knew that, no, I did not want to, I wanted something to do it for me. Like I was in charge. I've been pretty much in charge for at least 10 years. Like my dad was probably micromanaging a little bit here and there, and I probably do that too, to an extent, but I've been pretty much in charge. So we started with the software, not written tickets, like type out. And then we went to digital inspections in 2014. And then we started getting way better with the digital inspections. And then I realized, and I know you've said you want to talk about this in coming episodes or episodes prior, I forget, but like digital inspections, like that is where everything needs to go, because doing a written inspection, it's not good. It's not cute. It doesn't work. Doing digital inspection is the key to, I think it's the lifeline of the business.
And are you doing pictures or videos or both?
Both.
Okay. Because I think the videos actually are more powerful than some of the pictures potentially.
Maybe people come in and, hey, my dealer sent this to me. And then it's just the dealer on his phone and the technician under the car. Hey, this is what you're looking at. This is this. I'm like, this is garbage. Like we have so much better opportunity to beat them with that. But just technology is our friend. I think with Mitch's dad, my dad, technology was their enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I tried to teach my dad a computer. Like he probably thinks I tried pushing him out, but I tried teaching him the computer and he's just technologically illiterate.
My confession is when my parents asked what smartphone to get, I encouraged them to get iPhones because I don't use an iPhone. I don't know anything about iPhone, and I knew they wouldn't be able to answer their questions on how to use it. And that was probably wrong. I think they saw through it. They both got an Android. And so now I answer questions, but more recently, my mom actually switched over. But anyway, so I just answer questions for my dad now. But anyway, what about you, Ben? Was there a digital transition or technical piece to it that was difficult?
I think because my dad was previously involved with management groups and stuff. So he was usually up to speed on what the newest and latest and greatest, whatever's coming out. I think we were Mitchell, then RO Writer. I think we were at Tech Metric. We had a couple of add-ons out of Vitals, some other one. Sometimes I just jump around a little bit when the digital inspections and stuff. Technology, we've always had it and been trying to improve it and everything. And as time goes on, but I really think the big change when I came in was more, I used technology for it was just on my meetings, because I think that was one thing that I brought to the shop for the organization of having the meetings and then creating a leadership team. So then I have leaders at both shops. So then I can essentially working towards being like Mitch, where I don't have to be as much hands on. I can walk away, which also means I can also go put out any fire. If something's on fire, it's okay. I can go take care of it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
but by that organization process, and I read some books and different things just on my own, but it ended up turning out pretty good. It just developed over years. And now it's to the point where I do the quarterly meetings. I do weekly meetings with both my managers and my sister, for accounting and everything. But that's just like my meeting pulse. They already know I'm coming. You know what I mean? They already know what to expect. I've already established that. When you first start, it's weird. I'll tell you that. But then as it develops, it gets better and better. And then actually training your managers that where when they're making a decision, they don't have to call you right away. They feel like they can make the correct decision. That's more, I guess, based off your core values or whatever else, to know that Ben would want to get it done this way. And reassuring them that they're doing the right thing. And then when they do have an issue, obviously, bring it to me. I'll help you out. But to try to make people a little more independent and then help the business grow. It's not just 100% on me. I have other people that are helping me in this process. I'm just more of just show them the vision of where we're trying to get and then hold them accountable for things. Just moving along the way.
At what point in the process did you say, okay, I got to change the marketing or other vendors that you decided to kind of address? Was it a one by one on a case by case, or was there a specific point where you said, I need to do something about the marketing for the shop because everyone's relying on knowing my parents and they're not here as much anymore, right? Who wants to jump in on that? What point in the process did you address marketing?
So I think
go ahead, Ben.
I've been already handling the marketing for a while now. I don't know how exactly you guys are doing it in my area right now, where the postcards still do really well. The phone rings when the direct mailing goes out. So I do have a portion in direct mail still, but I am getting more in the digital side of things because I know that's where things are heading. But I don't really know exactly my plan. I think I'm just going to switch the picture on the front. Example, I guess. Well, look, and just put my picture on it. I don't know. I don't know. The ownership has changed. Most people know me anyways, but I don't know if that, and over time, I think the developers will see my face. I'm sure we'll have a little update on the website. You know what I mean? And we'll take new headshots with everybody, and we'll just revamp things and things going. But I don't think like much is changing in that.
Erik, what about you?
So when I first started, my dad was doing money mailer, which is, I guess, the postcards kind of thing, but not really. It's like you open a little envelope and it's got all those different coupons in there. And then he was also just doing a lot of local newspaper stuff. Mm-hmm. I have since changed to, we did postcards for a while that worked really well. It almost worked too well to where we couldn't even keep up. And then we pretty much do a lot of text marketing. We do a lot of email marketing. A lot of word of mouth. Like, we don't spend a ton on advertising, and we're still doing decent. My dad really didn't do a lot of marketing or advertising. It was a lot of word of mouth as well. But I think you need to just, at least, you got to have some type of marketing. You can't just let word of mouth do it. Because you piss somebody off, you piss the wrong person off, then word of mouth goes out the door.
That's like wildfire.
Yeah. Mitch, how about you? Did you change anything when it came to marketing when you took over the reins?
So we were for years in the local merchandiser paper that went out. We had coupons and stuff in there. We did small things. This year, end of last year, 23, we took on a marketing company for the first time ever. And they are doing our Google SEO. We're doing mailers like Ben held up there. We have specials. We are doing more with our Facebook posts. We're doing a lot of different things along that way. And behind the scenes, I've been involved in a lot of different organizations and whatever. And they have been pushing to bring that to the forefront. Like, Mitch and his business are involved in this. We're involved in that. And I was reluctant to do that. But we've been doing more of that now, as far as saying we're with community things and things like that.
What was it the moment that you took over the shop that you said, okay, I'm going to make this change? It was actually years out.
It took a little while to phase some of that stuff out. But like, really for us now, the digital thing is huge. Like I said, I was a little bit old school at first. I'm a lot older than these guys, but we're all on digital and Google and Facebook and stuff like that. We even have, it's all good.
Good. Steven, is Ron heavily involved in the marketing?
Yeah. So he does a lot of the marketing stuff. We work with, I don't know who we work with anymore, but we've taken it over in-house.
Okay.
So we were sending out stuff via mail and it wasn't getting that much return. So we started with Kui, and they're doing a lot of our online advertising and doing the customer retention advertising. We just send out an email every week to keep our name in front so that they look at us and see it. And then we have a Christmas card we send it out once a year that we start talking about through October and send it out. Take care of it pretty much all in-house.
Good. But it sounds like there wasn't a lot. That was not a hot topic as far as the transition goes. As far as the valuation was a much bigger topic, the process, but marketing wasn't really a hot topic. Last question for you. And I see the time, so we should probably be bringing this to a close. Do you ever bring them back for management conversations? Do you ever, like as a consultant, right? Do you ever get them to weigh in on something? Do you keep them involved in that kind of conversation? Or is that a bad idea? Don't all talk.
The only time I bring my dad back for anything is lunch. I should say, okay, then yes, we'll have with where we do our employee cookouts and stuff like that. We do that pretty often here. But if I have an older car that comes in the garage or in the shop, where it was like 50s, 60s, 70s type stuff, and I want to know what I'm looking for or whatever, I will go down or I'll call him and bring him up or have him step up, and he'll come out and look at it and say, this is what you need to do here. Or he said, God, you're right through it. And that's the only thing I ask for anymore. Just some of that old school expertise.
All right. Interesting. Any other thoughts on that, or is there any other closing thoughts that we want to talk about? All right. With that pause, then the last thing I want to ask that's not related to this topic is the future possible topics. I'd love to do a quick round robin of the goal, obviously, of this podcast is that there are shop owners that are in similar situations that are hearing what you have to say and are helping formulate their plan or address their particular issue, which are the same across the board. We even talked about maybe talking about loaner cars versus shuttling. And Erik alluded to the idea that we would go deeper into the DVI question and as far as how to actually implement that. What other topics that are kind of jump out at you that you would actually enjoy listening on this podcast? Do you have anything that comes to mind?
I just thought about this actually. One of our meetings a couple of years ago, our facilitator brought up an idea of different means of profit other than doing brake jobs and oil change, whatever. One thing that we started to do was the tire protection plan, where you pretty much just sell in-house tire insurance. The other things that we've talked about are doing like headlight restoration. Mitch, can you think of anything else I'm missing?
Yeah. So we referred to it as profit centers.
Yeah.
It was, you're doing oil changes, you're doing brakes, like Erik mentioned there, but like what additional services could you offer is basically what it comes down to. So I'll just give you an example. One of the things that we just put in and we're trying to work at is we're capable of doing ADAS in-house, which that's all with it. Lane departure, camera systems, all that other stuff.
There are shops that are just doing ADAS.
Right.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. So we invested in a new Hunter alignment system last year for our flush mount, cut out the floor, put the whole thing in. And this year we added the last piece of it, which is the ADAS capability. So we can calibrate all the stuff that's on these new cars. So that is a profit center. And that's what Erik was referring to, what our facilitator was talking. So there's all kinds of probably things that people are doing that we don't even think about. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. What can you add? Full service to take care of your customer, cradle to grave. You want them coming to you for everything. And
car related.
Yeah, everything car related. So that's how, I'm sure that's where Erik was going with.
I think that's a pretty good topic because it also goes into like programming of vehicles, all the new technology that's coming out. They're making it very expensive for us. What are different shops' strategies on how far you take certain things? I've been noticing like other competitor shops, I've noticed they're looking for low hanging fruit. They're looking for ball joints and brakes and tires. But then if it gets into like diagnostic, they turn things away. And I just feel like being an independent garage owner, one of the real big difficulties we have is dealing with all the new technology all the time. And then how to be on with the programming. Some of the stuff, I mean, a driver's seat module, you're going to have to program it. You know what I mean? So like, they're really, so those are different challenges I think would make a podcast just on like how hard people go. Like for me, I got the domestic programming capabilities. Currently, when it comes down to Mercedes or Audi or Toyota, I'm outsourcing or I got to call a third party. There's just certain things it's all very expensive, right? You know what I mean? There's only so far we can really go with it. Where do you draw the line? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think what will come up
accepting that we're pushing it to the dealer. You know what I mean?
Instead.
And I'd like to keep it that way, but they're definitely trying to prevent us from these things.
That's interesting. Okay. All right. Good.
I like that topic idea. That's a good one. Get through both of those.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. So I will. Thank you for that. All right. There's not any final questions on this topic, and you've already given me some ideas on the next one. Then I need to, at this time, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been a little bit longer than we expected. It's been 90 minutes. It's been a good conversation. I'm hoping that, and I'm very hopeful, and I think I have right to be, that this is going to help some people go through and figure out their plan for, well, first off, that they need a plan. They can't just walk along. They actually have to have that plan written out. They need to have that calendar written out for their training and for the transition period and what's going to happen to the prior owners, and make sure that they're actually cared for as well. All right. Again, thank you so much for your time. We'll be publishing this as we often do the upcoming Tuesday, as it's been live in the Facebook group. And if you're not actually already a member of that Facebook group, please reach out to. You actually have to ask to be membership, and then if our team verifies that you're a shop manager or owner, then they'll let you be a part of that group. Again, thanks for your time, and I'll let you guys get back managing shops.